and welcome to another episode of the Biz Coach Show. And today, as always, we are hanging out with Eric T. Whitmoyer, the founder and CEO of My Biz Coaches. And Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenal, David.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to be with you and excited for our topic today. It's interesting of the 85 plus shows that we've done. We've talked a lot about different aspects of the coaching relationship and all the issues that come up and how to navigate that. But one of the things we've never dedicated a show to or an episode to is the importance of setting expectations up front with clients. And so I think it'd be good for us to unpack that a little bit. And maybe we start with, what are some of the issues that you've seen pop up? Maybe it's coaches that, are part of My Biz Coaches, maybe personally things that you've seen or done. But if we don't set the right expectations up front with the coaching client, what happens long-term in that coaching relationship?
Yeah, great question. So I'll preface this with my experience yesterday, as I was sharing with another group earlier. But the challenge with setting expectations is an example, is a situation that transcends pretty much every aspect of business, right? It's not just the coaching relationship. It's literally the client's challenge with their employees, right? It's it goes into relationships. It goes into personal friendships. I mean, it's everywhere, right? We have a tendency to assume that people understood what we said, and with what we said, or even for that matter, what we shared in text, whether it's an email or a text or something like that. It's not uncommon for us to assume that everybody understood exactly what we said, what we intended to say with what we said. So as it relates to coaching, obviously one of the biggest challenges, if I say I'm going to increase sales, right? And then the client has an expectation that they're going to triple sales. Mm-hmm. And my expectation is we're going to increase sales by 20%. By not clearly identifying that expectation, then getting confirmation from the client that that's an acceptable improvement, right? We're going to have a disappointment, right? They're going to be disappointed. They're going to feel like they didn't get the result they were hoping for, right? In the euphoria that they had in tripling sales in 90 days, which would be pretty much unrealistic, depending on the business. But the point is that things fall apart when you don't set clear expectations. And I think it's it could be what's the return that they're going to get. What can they expect from the experience in regards to operational efficiencies? What things are they going to learn? What new topics or better yet, like I might say to a client, hey, you may not necessarily learn anything new from me, but what you will get is a better understanding of what the expectation would be for you to get the results you're looking for. Right. Or it might be that you're going to really understand how to read a P&L. Right. Yeah. It's like, and you're going to know and understand how these different numbers influence your business. Right. So that may not be dramatically new to you, or it could be a completely game changer for you because you've never really understood that. But what I do need to know is that expectation, this is what you can expect to get from our experience together. And I think that what I've found with other coaches, and I think that this is the phrase I would use in this scenario is we say things not to placate people, but we say things to convey a message, but we don't want to ruffle feathers. Sure. So we have a tendency to sugarcoat things, right? And when we do that, that's probably as bad as a poor expectation than anything. Right? Because it's like, if I say something to sugarcoat it because I don't really want to tell you what's really wrong, then you go on thinking that everything's okay and you keep doing what you're doing. Right. And so as a client, if the client consistently reschedules on me on a regular basis and or doesn't show up and then, just randomly, oh, sorry, something came up. And I'm like, you didn't communicate that with me. Right. At which not like that's ever happened. Right? But if I don't set the expectation that, hey, this is how this will be handled in the future, right? Or more specifically, right out of the gate, hey, this is how we handle rescheduling.
Right.
You get a one-time reschedule, and if that doesn't work, we just miss that week.
Yeah.
Right. But I have to clearly convey that if I step around the issue and I don't want to make you mad because I just signed you up as a client, well, then I'm watering down, my value, one.
Right.
But in addition to that, too, I'm setting a bad expectation for you, and that it's okay to reschedule on me, even though I've got a lot of things going on. I'm really busy as well, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not taking anything away from you as a business owner. I know you're super busy, and I know that things come up. But if you just randomly leave me hanging, I got to let you know that happens once. I get it. Happens second time. Happens a third time. I'm like, okay, you obviously don't respect my time, and now we have an issue. Right. And this all really comes down to bad expectation setting. It really comes down to poor communication.
Yeah.
Right. The better I set the expectation up front, the more likely that the person's going to understand. I don't like to say consequences, but there's some reciprocation that happens, right? If somebody doesn't follow through on their side of it. And similarly, right, if I'm flaking and I'm not showing up for calls, or I'm constantly late all the time, then the client should have some reciprocation as well, right? They should be able to say, well, maybe I get a discount on my coaching or whatever. But obviously you don't want it to go that far, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Eric. I want to unpack something that you talked about kind of at the start there, which is so much of frustration or unhappiness, whether it's in coaching or relationships or dating or whatever, right? As you mentioned, transcends everything, is it comes from either uncommunicated or unmet expectations. And I think that's such an important thing to key into. And so I think we talked about this was a couple of shows ago, but it was, kind of how to keep your clients and maybe even get them to renew with you and that sort of thing. And we were talking about, the importance of addressing challenges early. So maybe let's kind of talk about that. Is like, let's say you forgot to set an expectation, or they have an unrealistic expectation. Like, why do we need to address that immediately when it pops up?
Right. Yeah. Let me take that one step back and say the easiest way to resolve something is to address it before it comes up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're talking about expectation setting, the easiest way to deal with any problem, that's what we talk about in sales. The easiest way to deal with the objection, which is the big hairy thing that nobody wants to have to deal with, is to address the objection before it's even brought up.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so, David, and I'm going to use a sales example because it's real simple and easy for me to do. David, are you the primary person that's going to make the decision on this project?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. Perfect. Great. So we can
Yeah.
go ahead and come to a conclusion today. So assuming that I can provide you all the information you need to make your decision right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus
And
at the end of the sale, oh yeah, actually my partner or whatever. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so and similarly, you sit down with a client and say, okay, what is it that you'd like to get out of this coaching experience? And I have you rattle off whatever it is, and I document, or I bring it all together and say, okay, so here's what you gave me. Now, if I cover all of these things and we've accomplished these things, these goals, these expectations, you've learned this information, whatever, will you feel like we've had a successful engagement? Yes. Now all I have to do is live up those expectations. But if I go into it saying I'm going to have you follow my program, and then halfway through my program, you're like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Right? It's because I set poor expectations. I didn't tell you what you're going to get out of it, and I didn't let you tell me what you want to get out of it. So consequently, we have no, right? I just have my program and this is what I do. And that's where most coaches, I think, fail, because they don't do a good job of understanding. Because if I let you tell me where you are and what you want to get out of it, all I have to do is meet those expectations to have you feel like it was a successful engagement.
Right.
Right. But if I don't ask you and I tell you what we're going to do, and that doesn't match up with what you anticipated, and I don't allow you the opportunity to challenge and say, well, wait a minute, I thought I was going to learn more about this, and I just kind of blow through that, then I'm also poorly at setting expectations, because I may tell you what I'm going to do, but that may not match up with what your anticipation was. And because we didn't actually vet that conversation, now we're going to go through this entire engagement, or at least a portion of the engagement, until you decide that you're like, I'm not getting anything out of this, and you just don't show up anymore.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But again, it's like I could again, that's me assuming that my expectations are sufficient for you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think that a problem exists for a lot of coaches, because they are knowledgeable, and there is some tendency to assume I know what I need to, what I know. Right. And I know what you need. But if I don't ask you what you believe you need, then I may miss the opportunity to address something that's important to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about, and those are all, I agree, right? That's the best time is to deal with it up front. But what about a situation where, using your example of sales, right? So, I'm your client and I think you're going to triple my sales and you think you're going to do 20% more. And you realize, call 3 of a 12-month engagement that we're on very different pages. How would you address that mismanaged expectation?
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess at that point, so obviously if you've got any kind of level of emotional intelligence, you probably picked up on that. And at that point, you just have to stop the conversation and say, look, I recognize that there's a gap here in our expectations, David. And tell me again what your expectations are as far as what you consider a successful engagement. How much of a sales improvement are you looking for? And you say 3 times, and I'm like, okay. So before I say my number, what I would ask you then, as I try and quantify, help you understand that that's unrealistic,
right?
And say to you, okay, David, what did you do last year? And let's just say, for the sake of argument, you did $200,000, right? Okay, so you did $200,000 last year in top line sales, and you want to triple those numbers. You want to do $600,000 this year. What have you done for your marketing activity that would warrant a three-time increase in like, have you tripled your ad spend? No. Well,
right.
It's like, have you tripled the number of salespeople you have, or at least doubled the number of salespeople you have? No. Okay. Well, then are you tripling the number of sales conversations you're having? No. Okay. So it's, I guess what I would try to do without being obnoxious is help them self-identify that number is unrealistic. And then maybe come to an agreement on what would be a reasonable number for us to come to. But I'd have to get them to acknowledge, or if my expectation was too low, right? I say 20% on 200, it's only 240. Could you push that to 300? Yeah, absolutely. Especially at 200,000, right? You could push 200 to 300 in a year. So at that point, if it's, but that's a 50% increase at that point, not 300. So, right. So I wouldn't necessarily share the number per se, or the objective that I had in my head, until I helped them identify that what their expectation was out of line. Now, if mine was out of line, because I had set poor expectations in my own head, not considering, and generally this would happen if I didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah.
Right. This could very easily happen if I did a poor job of asking questions of you. What have you done to this point? Well, I've already tripled my ad spend. I've already added another 2 extra salespeople. We had 2, we doubled it to 4. I've already, whatever that looks like, or I've already increased the number of networking events that I'm going to by twice as many as I was before. That in itself would already tell me that you're looking for a pretty significant lift in productivity. And then based on that, let's back into that. But that would help me obviously identify I did a poor job of asking questions to identify, where to go. So again, to answer your question, how would I handle it? First thing I do is you got to stop right there, because this may be a done conversation. We may choose to not work together at this point, especially if the individual is convinced that their expectation is legitimate and I don't see it. And it's happened. I've had those conversations with people before. I'm like, I don't see you getting there. Now, I was able to get them to come to rational thinking. And sometimes it's, I guess it's the age old saying, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So, in expectation setting, one of the biggest things is making sure that you're using whatever the logic is, that you can extrapolate from that logic into, a goal that you're going to achieve. And I think that as a coach, that's one of the most important things we could possibly do.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I think definitely makes sense. I love addressing it and trying to find, whatever that middle ground is, or help them think about it from a different perspective, or really walk through, you understand the level of investment or time commitment, or what you're going to have to do as the owner. Are you prepared to even go that far? Right. All those sorts of things, which is super smart. You talked about something else too that I think is important, which is mutual expectations. And I think this is something that a lot of inexperienced coaches forget about, is they're focused on, like a service agreement or something of, here's everything I'm going to do for you.
Yep.
But they're not capturing, here's what I'm going to expect from you, right? Whether that's,
Great
show up
point.
to every call, or I'm going to need these documents, or one of the things that I love is, hey, you want me to respond to you within 48 hours? Well, I need a response back in 48 hours. So I have a question, or I need information, right? Those sorts of things. And the more you document that, man, it just makes that relationship so much smoother, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's an awesome point. As a matter of fact, as you're even saying that, it made me think of, I got to look at my agreement. No, but I think that I think that one of the, as you're saying, seriously, as you're saying that, I think one of the things that, I'm going to do all of this for you because I'm looking at it, especially a less experienced coach. These are all the things I'm going to do for you. And I'm not thinking about the things that you may do that would interrupt my ability to do that for you. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, we started our marketing agency within My Biz Coaches. We started the separate marketing agency specifically to support clients that we would engage with. And they say, I want to grow my business. And great, you need to work on this, and you're going to do these marketing pieces. And here's what we recommend. And then they're like, well, I don't have the bandwidth for that. And I'm like, okay, well, how are you going to get from here to there if you don't have the bandwidth? I can't really do the other part that I'm going to do if you can't increase your marketing. So right. I don't know how we're going to increase the number of leads you're going to get and be able to sell those. So I can help you with the sales process, but if you can't increase the marketing, then how do we solve for that?
Yeah.
Right. And so by introducing the marketing agency, we were able to come in and say, okay, we have a team, we have some VAs that we come in and we plug into your business, and they will do it on your behalf to make sure that your marketing activity is getting done, whether it's posting on social media or, whatever that might look like. Right. But we bring them in to do that because I recognized early on, as I started having more conversations with clients, they're like, well, I want this, but I don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So the coaching's great, but if they can't figure out how they're going to execute on it, then it's not going to take them anywhere, depending on what the scenario is. Right.
Well, and I think that's really smart, because I'm thinking about, we'll go with the ad spend thing. It's kind of like, my service is to advise you and to tell you what you should spend your money on, and what your ad should look like, and the copy, and some of those things. But my service doesn't include the $10,000 you need to spend on advertising. And so if you're not going to commit to that, then you can't hold me to a certain, ROI in your marketing effort, right? Or those sorts of things. And I think that's important too, is, outlining additional considerations and commitments, and just, again, avoid issues that can pop up down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part and part of the challenge, going back to your point about expectations as well. Sometimes I'll get clients to engage with me and they think, as a business coach, I'm going to be like part of their business.
Right.
And I'm going to help them do things. And I'm like, no. This isn't I didn't sign up to be your employee and help you do tasks. And I've done that, and I made that mistake. I know better now.
Right.
But that, poor expectation setting early on, I would say, you know what, it's just easier for me to just do it for you.
Yeah.
And then I realized I'm spending all this time helping a client do something that theoretically I should be charging for. Right. And because it's over and above the scope and the expectation. But I did a poor job of holding my ground on that expectation in the early days.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. We've had, we've talked to some coaches, maybe even on the show, that they have a policy, or they set an expectation that, I'm always available. And I'm like, I don't know that that's realistic either. When you got 2 clients, sure, but when you have 15 clients, you can't be available to all of them all of the time. And so, that's another expectation, is how available are you, and what does that look like on call, text, email, other platforms, right? And even outlining things like that, because, as you said, communication is so key, that we need to put some parameters around that, and how much is too much and how much is not enough, and all those sorts of things too.
Yeah. I'll even add a piece to that, coordinating scheduling.
Yes.
With, whether it's with an existing client or with a potential client. And then sometimes I'll have not clients, but I'll have partners that reach out and they want to connect. And I'm like, I just don't have enough bandwidth in the day to keep up with all of this, right? And it's just not enough hours, right? Unless everybody started getting up at 4 a.m, I don't know that I'd be able to get half the stuff done that I get done.
Right.
But what I can do is I can be efficient with my windshield time. So again, going back to expectations, Mr. and Mrs. whomever, let's say partner, because I wouldn't necessarily do that with a client. But I'll say, let's meet on the phone.
Yeah.
All right. Now, understand, I'll be driving while I'm on the phone, but I can carry on a conversation. We can have some ideas, whatever, as a strategic session or something like that. But if I'm actually going to do a coaching session, I need to be in front of my computer with the Zoom on and everything like that, or at least in a shop somewhere where I can sit down and take notes or whatever. But even that, by setting the expectation, like I had a new potential client, I said, he was like, he really needed to meet with me, and I'm like, that's not necessarily good. But he was like, I really need to meet with you in the next couple of days. And I said, I am absolutely booked. I've got an event. I got this, I got that. I said, I'll tell you what, I have a 30-minute window where I'm driving from point A to point B. If you would like, I'll happy to do a phone call. I could probably squeeze in 45 minutes, but I can do a phone call for that conversation. Right. And he's like, I'll take that.
Yeah.
But we negotiated that, right? It was, I set the expectation. I am going to be, I'll be driving at least. I'm capable of having a phone call conversation and drive. But my point is, I'll be in a car driving. So don't expect me to be in front of my computer and give that full experience. But I am capable of having that conversation. Does that work for you? Yes. For what I want to do, yes, that works. But again, I set the expectation. I clearly communicated what I felt would be potential drawbacks in the scenario. They were still okay with it. We were able to have that conversation, but I set the expectation to begin with, right? And I guess I think that's nice. One of the things, and I think it's probably one of the biggest things. People are as a coach, I'm going to say even early on myself, one of my tendencies was I don't want to say that I can't do something, right? So I'm like, well, let's talk and let's figure it out. And now I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, that's outside of my scope. Let me introduce you to somebody else, which is the reason we created the whole brand of My Biz Coaches.
Right.
Right. That was easier for me. I'm going to be upfront. This is outside of my scope or what, I think it would be the value I'd bring to you. Let me introduce somebody else, or we can establish the relationship. And when we get to that point of it, I'll be happy to introduce you to somebody else who can help you through that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Super smart.
Yeah. Well, and it's, again, it's experience, right? It's you. Yeah. I had that experience a couple of times and I'm like, that didn't work out so well. How can I make it work better?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a number of things that we've talked about that have been learned the hard way, right? And so I think that's one thing to consider is if you're new to coaching, you're thinking about getting into coaching, maybe you're a professional that serves small businesses, right? And you're like, I don't want to make these mistakes. That's a big reason why My Biz Coaches exists, is you can figure out, man, what should I set expectations on up front, and what should my agreements look like? And all of that has already been done. Or maybe, hey, I don't have that experience. Is there somebody else that does that I can refer this person to, and in turn benefit from their referrals? And so all of that can be found within My Biz Coaches. So definitely check it out. Scan the QR code. Go to mybizcoaches.co/coach. And it's just a great way to learn more about My Biz Coaches. You're not committed to anything, doesn't cost you anything, but helps you avoid a lot of these mistakes. And I think, I don't know about you, Eric, but I can imagine it's pretty challenging when you get, a third of the way through a coaching relationship and realize, man, we are just not even on the same page. We have just totally different perspectives on this one thing. And if I just had 1 5-minute conversation right at the beginning, I could have avoided a lot of headaches. And then you start living in this nightmare of, well, man, do I refund them their money? Or, well, I've done all this work, and it becomes really stressful when you're trying to navigate those sorts of things. And so, really, really important. So I know we can talk about this forever, but I know that, people don't want to listen to us for 4 hours. So is there any other thoughts that you have on the topic of setting expectations with clients, maybe best practices or things that you do that you would recommend somebody else kind of follow suit on?
Yeah, no, I think that the two primary things that, if I could convey that as it relates to this particular topic, the one is, well, I guess let me add to that. There's probably a third one, but so one is anything you can address up front, address it up front. Anything you've experienced in the past that didn't work out, learn from that and incorporate that. Go back and immediately and incorporate that into your expectation, which could be your agreement, your contract, whatever you use, however you convey that. But put it in the agreement, right? As this is how we handle it. And then don't be afraid to have the tough conversation.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably the final piece to that whole thing is don't be afraid to have the tough conversation. Have it sooner rather than later. Address the issue, address the concern. If you feel like it's not going the direction you think it should go, be ready to pull the plug and be willing to not make that engagement because it won't be worth it in the grand scheme of things.
Dude, I love that. And I'm glad you brought that up because we hadn't really talked about that, but the importance of reflecting when you hit those difficult situations, right? I mean, ideally, right, the more you address up front, like you're saying, the smoother it should be. And so when you're in a coaching relationship, however long you've been in that engagement, all of a sudden you're like, man, why is this getting harder? Why am I not liking this as much? Or why am I struggling with this client? Be thinking about next time, what can I do up front to eliminate that, right? Or how do I get better at addressing these things and, working with somebody like you or my biz coaches, right? And like, hey, how do you guys address this? And what's the talk track? And, what best practices, all that sort of stuff. Super helpful. So I love that. Great advice.
Yeah. And again, I think it's just an extension of experience with sales, right? It's that's the hardest objection to overcome is the one you've never heard.
Yeah.
Once you've heard it, don't get burned again. Right.
Yeah.
Once you've heard that objection, remember the best retort or way to response to deal with it. And like I said before, meet it right up front, address it right up front. Even before it's even become a conversation, say, I don't do this. I won't tolerate this. I won't address this, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. And that's something else you kind of alluded to, but worth saying explicitly is like, if there's going to be a deal breaker, get to it fast, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's the price or, well, I'm looking for somebody to do X and you're like, well, I don't do that. So I guess, let's not move into this instead of like, I'm sure I could figure it out after, it's just like, just don't even go there. Just not worth it. Right. So I love that.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I know early on, there were times where I was like, I could figure that out. And I'm like, man, I don't and I probably did it for less money than I should have on top of that. So
sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was a good recap of some of the key points and then just some great, very practical best practices. So as always, appreciate you sharing your insights with our audience. Before we wrap up today, Eric, is there anything kind of new, maybe simmering below the surface over at My Biz Coaches that you want to give us a little sneak peek on?
It's still simmering, not quite ready to boil over just yet.
Is it almost like a rolling boil at this point?
Yes,
or like
we're getting close to the rolling. I think that after into the new month here, we'll have some announcement for everybody.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, we will look forward to that. And if you are new to the show, maybe you watched a couple shows, we definitely encourage you to subscribe to the channel. So make sure you do that. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to follow Eric on LinkedIn. He's very active, posts a number of different articles, newsletters, just a lot of really great content. So go check him out. And then if you are interested in becoming a coach, be sure to head over to mybizcoaches.co/coach to learn more. And Eric, we will see you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.